Good morning. This is Mickey Sanders, Chair of the Colorado Board of Real Estate Appraisers. Today is September 7th. It is 9 o'clock. This is a public meeting of the Colorado Board of Real Estate Appraisers. We will now call this meeting to order. Let's begin by having the Division Director perform a roll call.
Mickey Sanders.
Here.
Brent Goff.
Here.
Daisy Glassburn.
Here.
Clint Taylor.
Here.
Patrice Campbell.
Here.
Rob Stilo.
Here.
And Chris Chippendale is absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes from July 6, 2023?
I'll make a motion. This is Patrice Campbell.
Thanks, Patrice. I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Brent Goff.
Thank you, Brent. There's been a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. There's been the motion and the second. We will now do the votes. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, the motion passes. Now we move on to other matters. Do any members of the board or the commission have any matters they'd like to bring forth? All right, hearing none, we will move on to policy matters. Under policy matters, A, FHA requirements regarding smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. I'm going to suggest, and we can do this without a motion, that we move this into further down the agenda, as we will probably need legal advice on this, and we will probably discuss this in executive session. All right, B, ASC compliance review.
So I don't know if they're joining right now. You may want to move to matter C first and give them a minute.
Okay, thank you. Under under item C, does anyone have any agenda items for the next Berea meeting?
No.
All right, hearing none.
Madam Chair, Christy Clammett has joined. So if you want to give her a moment just to kind of give you guys an overview of the compliance review.
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, and I apologize for being late. There's some other people in a different meeting as well, so I think I clicked on the wrong link. But anyway, good morning. I just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself. I'm Christy Clammett. I'm the policy manager assigned to the state of Colorado. If you haven't heard already, we're back on the road. So we will be conducting an on-site compliance review of the Colorado Appraiser and AMC programs the week of September 26th through the 28th. Our last time for an on-site review was in August of 2018, so it's been quite a while. And at that point, we only reviewed the appraiser program. So this time around, we will be reviewing the AMC program as well. Part of our review is observing a board meeting. So thank you very much for letting us attend and watch how you conduct business. Neil Finichetti is the assistant that's coming in for the compliance review, and he's just texted. He still hasn't been able to join. So hopefully he'll be able to meet all of you soon. Like I said, we will be reviewing both aspects of the program to ensure compliance with Title 11, the ASC policy statements, the AQB criteria, and then, of course, the AMC rule and fee rule. At the end of our review, we'll be on site for about 3 days. At the end of our review, we will prepare a preliminary report. There'll be a separate report, one for the appraiser program and one for the AMC program. And if there are any items of concern or non-compliance, they'll be noted in the preliminary report. At that point, the state then will have 60 days to provide a response before it goes before the appraisal subcommittee for the final report. And then, like I said, at that time, you'll be assigned a rating for each program. In August of 2018, like I said, we only did the appraiser program, and Colorado had a finding it good. There was only one area of concern at that time, and that had to do with some outstanding complaints. So we look forward to visiting and seeing everybody in person. We always enjoy coming to Colorado, and will be available throughout your meeting. So feel free if you have any questions. I know you have a lot to get done today, but we are here if you need any of our assistance or any more detail, but otherwise I'm going to keep it short. Marcia, did that provide enough info?
I think so. I mean, staff is well acquainted with these reviews. I don't know if the board members, do you have any questions?
And I don't know right now how many have never been through a review or not. So like I said, feel free to ask questions. I know Marcia and her staff are very knowledgeable and have probably already provided you with a lot of the history of this whole unique regulatory structure, but feel free to ask me any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you so much for joining us. And again, I'll just give a few seconds of pause to see if anyone has any questions or comments for Christy. And if one comes up during the meeting, please feel free to interject with that question or comment. All right, we will now move to the citizen participation period. Any person may bring their concerns about matters not on the agenda before the board. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to 2 minutes unless allowed additional time by the board. The board may allow public comment on agenda items. Eric, I'll now turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Anybody from the public, if you'd like to address the board, just please raise your hand. We will call on you and unmute you. And Madam Chair, I do not see any raised hands. Oh, one just came up.
Thanks, Eric.
Kevin Sawyer. You are unmuted, so you have to hit unmute your microphone and you'll be able to speak.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. With the release of Pyrea, AI Pyrea just recently released, there's going to be a number of appraisers that go through, that training, and they're going to utilize that training to become 100% qualified to obtain an appraiser license or certified residential license. Is the board concerned that those appraisers that are taking the Pyrea class will enter the appraisal realm without seeking additional guidance from local appraisers to become geographically competent? My concern is I've seen appraisers come out of the assessor's office utilize their ad valorem experience, as well as completing standards 2-2 appraisals for the assessor's office, come out into the appraisal realm and work in that fee market without obtaining any additional guidance from local appraisers to become trained in completing fee appraisals. So that's my concern. And I'm wondering if the board is concerned in what, I know that they'll probably have to, a violation will have to be submitted to the board before it's addressed, but what is the board's position on that?
I'll have to defer to board members. I don't know, Kevin, that it's been discussed that we have a position on it yet. Possibly we should consider putting it on next November's agenda item. Marcia, were you going to say something?
Well, so back in March of 2021, I believe it was, you all adopted the PREA program as set forth by the AQB. So we don't have any additional experience requirements. If somebody gains all of their experience And it depends on what level of licensure. We accept that. So if they were going for a license credential and they gained all of their experience that was required under PREA, we wouldn't require them to do actual kind of fee appraisal work with a supervisor or a mentor, as we call them, because Colorado doesn't have a supervisor designation. But they wouldn't have to go out and gain field experience in order to get that credential. We would just accept the PREA experience. And there's also a PREA program for certified residential. It only applies to part of the certified general experience. So with certified general, they would have to get some actual field experience for that credential.
And that's my concern is they're going to do all of this experience through a national program and not be geographically competent if they enter their local market without a supervisor. I know there's other states that only gives partial experience requirements. Colorado is one of the ones that is 100% experience hours is accepted for the PIREA program. I think, let's see, Kansas is partial. Then there's several states that are not yet convinced of it. So that's my position. I'm concerned that they will enter the appraisal field not having the experience being geographically competent and knowing how to extract adjustments from their local market.
So from my understanding of PREA, though, is that they have mentors that they work with through that program. And I wouldn't necessarily assume that the mentors aren't geographically competent for Colorado, because we do have an AI chapter here. So I think this is something that we'll just have to see as it rolls out, how it is being administered as far as geographic competency. But still, they would have to, even if they gained their experience in other markets, they would have to become geographically competent here like any other appraiser. If somebody wanted to come from Wyoming and start appraising here, they'd have to get geographic competency as well.
So Kevin, if I might speak, this is Brent Goff. I'm not speaking for the board right now, but as the assessor member, I can tell you my experience is that individual competency is geographic, but it's also involving the property types and a technique involved in the property type that you're appraising. So I am concerned that I have seen competency issues on the other side of things where people dive into the mass appraisal appeal assignment condition, and they don't understand the requirements for all the myriad of laws that apply to that assignment. So competency can be geographic, but it can also be due to the assignment conditions for mass appraisal. So I've seen both. And I understand your concern.
All right, do we have any other discussion?
Just to kind of jump back to what Marcia mentioned, I don't know the exact number of mentors that the Appraisal Institute has, but for the whole nation, but I know it's under 10 or under 15 for sure. I was that they hired for the whole PIREA program. So they're not going to have mentors that are geographically competent in every market because those mentors, that's their job. They're not allowed to take on additional appraisal assignments. Their job is to be a mentor. I'm also an AI member, so also a Region 2 rep for the Appraisal Institute. So that's just my concern. I'm not saying that that's the position for the Appraisal Institute. That's my concern personally. I don't speak on behalf of the Appraisal Institute.
Hey, Kevin, this is Rob Stylo. I'm an SRA also, but part of PARRIA is mentoring new appraisers to complete USPAP compliant appraisals. So part of the geographic competency comes on the appraiser themselves, right?
Mhm.
Because us as practicing appraisers, we have to determine if we're geographically competent or not. And sometimes it does fall through the cracks, I think, and you take a crack to do something somewhere else to become competent. But the PARRIA program, from what I understood, pushes the USPAP compliant appraisals.
And I totally agree. I'm just worried that once you give that appraiser their license, if they can't find somebody to help them become geographical competent, they're going to go out to the market and start performing appraisals by themselves. I've seen it with appraisers that are coming out of the assessor's office, that I think we've had this discussion with Marcia and Ms. Seaman too, like probably a year or two ago, that an appraiser comes out of the office and they get their license to meet the AQB standards, to become licensed, and they enter the appraisal realm and they start performing these appraisals, and they don't really understand the fee market, and they're providing these appraisals for mortgage loans, until they get a complaint against them, and that's the only time it's addressed. I just don't want that to happen to an appraiser. I don't want them to be set up with a false sense of security that once they finish this PIREA training, that they're qualified to come out to the market all by themselves and not without any additional training. And I know AI, that's their goal, is to get an appraiser to become certified residential and be able to turn that appraiser over to another appraiser to kind of train them kind of in the geographical competency, but worried that in the slower market, that appraiser may not find somebody to complete the training with them and just enter the market independently and not do the public any good, by performing an appraisal by just not performing an appraisal correctly. So that's my concern.
All right, any more thoughts or questions on this matter? All right, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. Board members, thank you for your comments. We will now move on to other hearing matters. We will now take up the initial decision and exceptions in the matter of APR 2020-003, Colorado Board of Real Estate Appraisers versus Darla Bowen. Present to assist the board in reaching a final agency order are Eric Turner, Division Deputy Director, and Sue Kim as Conflicts Counsel. Also present is Melissa Phipps, Senior Advisor. A background for you all. The board previously referred this matter for the licensees acting or failing to act in a manner that does not meet generally accepted standards of professional appraisal practice in violation of the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice Board Rules and Section 12-10-613(1G) of the Appraisers Act. A hearing was held before the Office of Administrative Courts. The administrative law judge issued an initial decision with findings of fact, conclusions of law establishing the respondent in an appraisal report prepared in July 2019 violated the Appraisal Act and the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice as adopted in Board Rules 1.10 and 11.1. For such violations, the ALJ recommended the discipline of a 6-month suspension, 2-year probation with conditions of a monthly work log, and division randomly selects up to 5 appraisals a month review. Exceptions to the initial decisions have been filed by the licensee. which the board has reviewed along with the response filed by the division. The board will deliberate today on whether to adopt or modify the initial decision and proceed to a final agency order and final discipline, if any. At this time, I will invite a motion to enter executive session to discuss legal questions, options, or issues with counsel and to consider matters required by law. May I have a motion to move into executive session? And I think I can do it, so I'll go ahead and do it. This is Mickey Sanders. The time is 9:25. I move the Colorado Board of Real Estate Appraisers to enter an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6, 402, 3A2 for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel and receiving advice on specific legal questions relating to matter APR 2020-003, Ford versus Darla Bowen. Do we have a second for the motion?
This is
Second.
Patrice. I'll second it. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. May we have a vote, please? All in favor of executive session, say aye.
Aye.
I,
All opposed.
They're not concerned.
All right. We are going,
Yeah, board members, if you just mute yourself and turn your
Thank you, Eric.
cameras off, there was another Google Meet link that was sent to you. And Christy, that was sent to you as well. That was probably the one you were on prior. So
Okay.
we'll all be meeting there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
thanks, Eric. The time is now 9:50 and the board is now back in open session. All right, it looks like we have folks back now. I will go ahead and make a motion and then open it up for discussion. As to the findings of fact and conclusions of law, I move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law from the initial decision in their entirety. Do I have a second for that motion?
This is Daisy.
go
Go
ahead. No, go ahead, Daisy.
I was just going to second that.
Thank you, Daisy. May I have a vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, the motion passes. Now we move as to the final discipline against the respondent's license. I'm going to read to you what the recommendation was, and I have a vote. I'm sorry, and then open up for discussion before we vote. I move to adopt the recommended discipline and order of suspension for 6 months, followed by probation for 2 years, monthly work log to the division, and at that time, the division would select at random up to 5 appraisals per month to review. Before we have a vote, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
So I have a question. The suspension for 6 months, does that mean that the appraiser will need to do work and submit it to the division during that time?
That I don't know. Eric, can you take that one?
Sorry. Yeah, so they would submit a log on a monthly basis, and then the division could select up to 5 appraisals during that month to review.
Well, wait, no, during the 6-month period of suspension was the
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
That's okay.
I apologize, Taki. Yeah, during a 6-month suspension, she would not have a license, so she would not be able to perform any duties requiring that license. There would be no
Okay.
appraisal work.
Would she be able to do work under and have someone else do this, sign it, be the signatory?
With the meaning of suspension, I would be inclined to say no, she would not be able to do that.
I think that's the only part of this that I have just a little bit of a, not an issue with it. I understand it, but I also would like to see if there's another option to allow this person to possibly make some money going forward, or at least have something that's applying towards something. That's my only, I think the rest of the recommendations are fine, but is there any way to, find a happy median here?
I apologize, Patrice. I will backstep. She would be able to provide significant assistance as long as she had someone signing off on the appraisal.
Okay.
This is Brent Goff.
Thanks, Eric.
Was listening to you, Patrice. I think, and Eric, during that time where she's providing the significant appraisal assistance, she's going to be mentioned in someone's certification. Could the board review those appraisals as well? Or have them submitted? So in other words, if she's providing assistance on an appraisal and she's given attribution by the appraiser in the certification, can we have the division look at a sample of of those appraisals?
Well, now we're talking about another licensee. And I don't know if we would have jurisdiction over another licensee who would be required to make sure that significant assistance, was accurate, if they're including that into their appraisal work.
Hey, Eric, I got a question. This is Clint Taylor. Anything that her name is attached to or that she has worked on, I know we're talking about another licensure signing off on it, but I'm tend to agree with what Brent is suggesting in the sense that we're just trying to make sure that, obviously she's not sitting idle in those 6 months, she's working, but we want to verify what she is working on and making sure that we're seeing progression in that time frame of that 6 months, in addition to everything else that she will have to accomplish. I think that's where my mind is at, and I'm agreeing with Brent. And again, I understand where you're coming from a jurisdiction standpoint, but is there anything that we can do to verify that anything that she is working on that we can see potentially, or a percentage of what she's working on?
Well, I don't know if that's really the intent of the work product review. I imagine if she would disclose up front with any potential licensee that, hey, if I'm going to be providing significant help with this appraisal, that the division may be looking at this to review. I don't know if we would know whose work was whose, and that does put the supervisor or the mentor at risk.
But we could change the suspension to 3 months instead of 6 months or something, just to.
Yeah, that's definitely. We could also, ask the mentor to, that's working with them, to give updates on her work that she's providing.
I think that'd be fair.
Well, and I want to know if I'm reading this correctly, where it says the division had previously sought $1,150 civil penalty plus 6-month work log review. And did she reject that proposal? If I remember correctly?
Yes, they did not settle at those terms.
Yeah, she rejected that.
Originally.
Yes.
For whatever reasons, the case proceeded to hearing, and that's what you're seeing before you in the initial decision. So that was the evidence presented, the arguments presented, and the like. And that's the limit of the specifics on that for your purposes today.
Okay, thank you.
But this is Brent. I'd be willing to discuss a 3-month instead of 6 month if she were willing to disclose any appraisals that she provided significant assistance to, and were to submit 5 or 6 of them to the board over the course of the 3 months. That'd be my thought. 6 months is a tough deal to be out of work. So 3 months is enough to hit the pocketbook and learn a lesson, I think.
Yeah, this is Clint Taylor. I want to comment on that. She did state in her letter, though, and I'm not trying to play hardball or anything by any stretch of the imagination here, but she stated that she also is a real estate broker. She's got her, so she also is working in that regard. So if she is suspended for 3 months, 6 months, she is going to still be actively in real estate, trying to make money. It just won't be on the appraisal side for whatever we decide to do. So I just wanted to make sure to throw that out there as a reminder.
It's true.
Okay.
Madam Chair, could I jump in with a clarifying question for the board's consideration?
Please.
When in response to board member Stylo's last suggestion, if the supervised assistance, the significant assistance is not part of licensed activity for the real estate appraiser, would you then be looking at only confirming that she is not exercising or using her license during that suspension period? Or is it part of what you're looking for, actually qualitatively reviewing her non-licensed assistance activity? I think there's a little bit of a difference there, and I think it goes to sort of the authority of what the board's looking for and what's necessary for public protection for licensed real estate brokers as opposed to unlicensed activity, even if it is related. If you're looking to ensure that she's not practicing under the scope of her authority of her license, that's one thing. If it's not licensed activity, I think that's another.
Thoughts, Rob? Did that answer what you had asked?
Yeah, I thought that was Brent that brought up the, and that's okay. I think that makes sense, but it's a fine line. If somebody's supervising, how are you reviewing just the assistants? Because you'd have to review the supervisor, correct?
Yeah.
Which wouldn't be, that would be unnecessary here because that's not the question. It's how are you reviewing her assistants and not reviewing the supervisor's work? There's no way to really distinguish her, what she assisted in. As for the time frame, the 3 months is probably fine, but she does have her hands in a lot of real estate, which is good. But I'm more concerned with the appraisal side. Just making sure she's getting what she needs and not putting a supervisor or somebody else at risk, because then it opens a whole new another realm.
I can just suggest deferring to your staff here who would be enforcing this, whether the mechanism would be sufficient if you're just looking for both the licensee and the supervisor to certify that her services are limited to non-licensed assistants, and also confirming that the work product that she is performing has been satisfactory or something like that. But again, I think there's a line to be drawn between overseeing her licensed activity and ensuring that she is not, even while working alongside in the same field. But Eric, I don't know if you've got some other tools there to specify.
Well, I mean, if it's the board's intent to allow her to, you know, still earn some income working with a mentor during this period, I think, you know, if we're requesting the licensee to submit their appraisals to us for review, I don't know if you're going to find many that will be volunteering to help her out, because once again, it might be tough to distinguish whose work is whose, and it's going to put that licensee, you know, potentially under our scope. So I'll go back to, you know, if you want to allow that, maybe an update from that licensee on the work that she's providing to give, you know, the division some assurances that she is producing, you know, USPAP compliant work alongside that licensee, maybe a better way to go.
I think I would be thinking along the lines of not overcomplicating that suspension period, but maybe changing that suspension period to the 3 months, and then going right to probation. That's just one way to simplify it. Or during that 3 months, yeah, maybe some minor updates. I just don't know how the division would like to see that provided to them. But I just think it's, you know, that might be my thoughts. That's all I can think of to kind of soften it, but still make sure that the discipline is adopted correctly.
Any other questions or thoughts? So, Patrice, with your permission, I will go ahead and make the motion with 3 months, and it seems like people are in agreement for 3 months. So question I have to ask, do I have to do these motions separately or can I do them together?
Madam Chair, there was your prior motion on the table, so I don't know if ordinarily you withdraw that or just
Okay.
modify that, but it might be cleaner to wipe that.
I'm going to
slate
withdraw
clean.
my prior motion. Thank
Okay.
you.
And then for
And-
how you want to proceed with the new motion, I don't know that there's a legal requirement, but a listing of the full recommendation or motion to be considered might be helpful.
Okay, then I'll just
so
go
that the
ahead.
board can.
I'll go ahead and
okay.
do them separate. So first I'll make a motion. It's Mickey Sanders. I will make a motion to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law from the initial decision in their entirety. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll
I
second
do
that.
think that one was already passed as
Yeah.
of 9:48:09. I
It
think
was
the-
passed. I apologize.
Sorry.
I apologize.
The motion that you
Okay, I'll do
made,
the discipline.
apologies.
Okay, I will make a motion as to final discipline against respondent's license. I move to make the motion that the licensee be suspended for 3 months, followed by probation for 2 years, with a monthly work log to the division, and the division selecting at random up to 5 appraisals per month to review, and in addition, adding public censure to the discipline. Do I have a second?
I second that, Rob Stylo.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the motion passes. I have one more motion I have to make. I move to direct adjudicatory counsel to draft a final agency order to reflect the board's determination and delegate authority to Deputy Director Eric Turner to sign the order on behalf of the board. May I have a second?
This is Patrice. I second that.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed
Aye.
say nay. The motion passes. A final board order will be issued by the board in due course, and a copy will be mailed to the parties by board staff.
Madam Chair, just a quick clarification. As moved and passed by the board, there's no mention of the appraisal, the significant assistance term that was under discussion. And that's the board's intent to leave that part silent.
Oh, during the suspension of 3 months?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
So-
that's fine. I don't know. If they do any work, they're gonna be, someone else will have to be the signatory. And as Eric pointed out, then they would be under the microscope themselves. So I think to leave it is fine. But I'm up for other thoughts.
I'm up for leaving it alone. Any other thoughts? And I guess, Sue, I have to ask you, is it okay if we leave it alone and leave it as is?
I'm just clarifying, that was the motion as passed, and I'm just confirming that that is
Okay.
consistent with
I think it is.
Great. All right. Well, that I think is all for this particular matter. So if there's nothing further from the board on it, I will excuse myself at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for your assistance, Sue.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to complaint investigations. First, complaint number 2023-646.
So board members, complaint matter A, this complaint alleged that the respondent used inappropriate comparable sales and unsupported adjustments. In reviewing the report in the work file, several potential USPAP violations were discovered. There appeared to be scope of work, record-keeping rules, and potential competency issues. The respondent also failed to fully analyze the subject's amenities and condition, the neighborhood market area, or properly document the analysis used to select the comparable sales. There was no support for the adjustments made in the sales comparison approach. There were no recognized methods or documented support used in the development of the cost or income approaches. Finally, there are insufficient summaries and analysis to support the opinions and conclusions made in this report. Potential violations include 12-10-6131G, failed to comply with USPAP, the competency rule, the scope of work rule, the record keeping rule, and standards 1 and 2. The recommendation is for a stipulation for diversion, a work product review of 4 appraisals in 2 months, and coursework consisting of 7 or more hours in comparative analysis and or supporting adjustments, 7 or more hours in residential report writing, 7 or more hours in sales comparison, and 5 or more hours in data verification. The investigator is Rob Walker, and he's here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Rob?
So Rob, I guess there were some things in this report that weren't awful and some that were kind of interesting. Like there were some strange adjustments, and I noticed on like the listings on the appraisal, instead of subtracting for a typical list to sale, they were added, and just things like that. Did you get any better feel of what they did or didn't understand about how to make adjustments?
Just for clarification process, is this the what was the case number again?
2023-646.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. There were some issues here, and I think this was kind of a tricky area. I don't think this was an egregiously bad appraisal. I think there were some adjustments that basically had no support, or other than market experience, market reaction, which we see regularly. So I don't think there was anything that was over the top wrong with this one. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry. I didn't know this one was going to be me first.
Oh, sorry. No, I just was talking about the adjustments that got applied in the actual grid. Just seemed unsupported, and in some cases just backwards.
Yeah, it did seem like that, because there was really no particular methodology stated in the report, nor was there any support in the work file. So a lot of this, even when I questioned her about it, she couldn't really elaborate, a reasonable explanation of why she did things at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice.
Rob, this is Rob Stylo. So outside of the appraisal, the complainant was a mortgage loan officer
I believe so.
and quoted USPAP.
Right.
Did you speak to those guys when you do your investigation as well? Do you speak to the complainant?
Most of the time we do, yes.
Okay. I'm just worried about the reason for I'm not saying the appraisal was not needed addressed, but I'm worried about the motivations behind the complaint. That's all I was questioning.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if a complaint is not strictly value related, we're going to look into it. So,
Perfect.
I mean,
Yep.
if there's some other legitimate reasoning, and there seemed to be, some question about some of the adjustments made and the lack of support, so we're going to look into it. A lot of the times, the initial allegations don't really meet the bar enough to to go after, but it's the other things in the discovery process that we see in the appraisal itself. That's generally where we see more issues than an initial complaint will come up with.
Oh, so we just don't take the complaint and run with it. You do your due diligence on.
Yeah, we do the due diligence. We go through the report completely, and then during our investigations, most of the things we're looking for is reasoning and support. If you can give me some sort of reasonable explanation and provide support for your opinions, that's great. Unfortunately, this woman was able to provide reasoning.
Easy enough. Appreciate it.
All right, Marcia, could you please remind us of staff recommendation?
Sorry. The recommendation is for a stipulation for diversion, work product review of 4 appraisals within 2 months, coursework, 7 or more hours in comparative analysis and or supporting adjustments, 7 hours or more in residential report writing, 7 hours or more in sales comparison, and 5 hours or more in data verification.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept staff's recommendation?
Sure, this is Patrice. On case number 2023-646, I move to recommend the recommendations by the staff for this complaint.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Clinton
Second, this
Taylor.
is Daisy Glassburn.
Thanks, Daisy. All right, I have a motion to second. We will now take a vote. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. All right, the motion passes.
So board members, complaint matter B is case number 2023-765. This complaint alleges that the respondent failed to analyze the subject's sales history, used dissimilar comparable sales, and made inadequate adjustments. In reviewing the report and the work file, several potential USPAP violations were discovered. There appeared to be scope of work, competency, record-keeping rules, and issues with standards rules 1 and 2. The respondent failed to fully analyze the subjects and comparables sales conditions, the neighborhood and market area, or properly document the analysis used to select the comparable sales. There was no support for the adjustments made in the sales comparison approach. There was no real consideration to develop the income approach. Finally, there are insufficient summaries of analysis to support the opinions and conclusions made in the report. Potential violations include 12-10-613-1G, failed to comply with USPAP, 12-10-613-1B, which is a violation of Part 7 or any rule, Board Rule 12-12, not having copy displayed on the printed portions of the license, the competency rule, the scope of work rule, the record keeping rule, and standards rules 1 and 2. The recommendation is for a stipulation for diversion, supervision of 4 appraisals in 2 months, and coursework of 5 hours or more in data verification, 7 hours or more of comparative analysis and or supporting adjustments, 7 hours or more in sales comparison, the board's reliable record keeping course, and then 4 hours or more of market analysis. This investigation was completed by Rob Walker, and he's here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Well, I hate to keep speaking up, but I'm going to anyway. I
No, thanks, Patrice.
I know this market, I know that property, and that is a tough property to appraise. And so why I think there were some issues and the adjustments were not supported, I do believe that the market information was okay in there. I mean, this is a lone condominium project that sits outside of town. There's a few houses, a couple duplexes. Otherwise, it's all single family homes, and the comparables used were probably the best that were possible. It's just a really unusual property. Again, I don't think that the support was there for adjustments, and I think there were some issues with the locational, not having some sort of support for evaluation, because it really is in an inferior location. But when they talked about how many other properties were available, I think, I know realtors there that say they have 10 buyers and one property on the market. So I think a lot of it was just an unusual property, so a little bit more difficult, although I do think there were some problems with, again, mainly the support for adjustments. But I don't know, Rob, can you tell us any more about your conversations with this appraiser?
Yeah, I think the major issue is everything, all of her adjustments were based on market knowledge and nothing else. She didn't even try to support anything else. There was no analysis whatsoever. And that was the kind of the big deal. It's like, and I agree that it is an unusual location, but there should have been some sort of location analysis even attempted. A lot of the times we try to give people the benefit of the doubt. If a lot of it's just, give me something. And it appears that, just the lack of overall analysis was kind of amazing. Also, I mean, the lack of analysis of the previous sale, but it more than doubled in 2 years, and there was nothing in there.
I agree with that. Yeah,
very well be right, but you got to tell us something. So I think basically it's just no support, everything based on market knowledge, and lack of decent summaries or commentary were the main issues with this one.
okay, thanks. I see that, and I agree with all that.
So
There's
Rob,
also a very wide, sorry, Rob.
go ahead, Daisy.
There's also a very wide range in the sale prices. Comp one really stands out, being put into question and didn't seem necessary, but so support for that, I would think, is vital. That's just my thoughts on that.
What I was saying, Rob, again, I read the report and I read your report, and I think you're spot on, but should this have even came for review? What I'm saying is Fannie sent a complaint, a computer generated unsigned complaint. They loaned on it. I'm not saying there's not inadequacies in the report and the investigation was spot on, but is this something that we should have even received? Do we take all the Fannie Mae, just the computer generated reports, complaints the same? I know they're not, they're just looking for inadequacies. I know we have another one later too, but they're just spitting stuff out that doesn't fit their model and filing a complaint with the state and not really reading where she covered a lot of their complaints in her text. There were still some deficiencies, but she covered a lot what they complained about. Again, back to the other question, is the unmanned complaint still something? We're just looking at the report and you found significant reasons to review it and investigate it.
Yeah, I think Marcia can address more of the complaint process and when we investigate it. Generally, we just look into the four corners of the complaint, and again, looking for reasoning and support. I think Marcia might be able to address more of the Fannie Mae. We do have a little concern because most of these complaints are 18 months old, but I think Marcia can address more of that issue.
So when they come into us and they make allegations about USPAP, we need to open those. There have been a few that they've submitted that like there was one that was submitted, and they usually are age complaints. So they're usually 1.5 to 2 years after the effect of the appraisal being done. There is a point of contact though for these complaints. So it's not just this arbitrary computer generated email that goes out to us. there was a complaint filed about an appraiser referring to a neighborhood as vintage, and they filed a complaint with us saying that that was discriminatory. I don't exactly know what vintage is connected to other than antiques, but so that was the type of complaint that we wouldn't have opened up on. But usually if they were making actual discrimination complaints or they were complaining about use PAP violations, those we will open and investigate. And most of the time with these complaints, we have substantiated use PAP deficiencies.
Perfect.
All right, then. Any other questions or thoughts? Do I have a motion to accept staff's recommendation? I will go ahead and make the motion then. In case number 2023-765, I move that we accept staff's recommendation. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. This is Patrice.
Thanks. I'll have a vote. Let's hear the ayes.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, in case number 2023-765, the ayes have it. It passed, the motion passes for staff recommendation. Marcia, you're on mute.
It's going to be one of those days.
It
So board
is.
matter C is complaint number 2023-790. The allegation with this complaint is that the respondent failed to pay or notify the appraiser in writing that a bona fide dispute existed regarding the performance or the quality of the appraisal within 60 days after the completion of the appraisal, and the appraiser is complaining that they weren't paid. Potential violation is 12-10-614-1H, failing to pay the appraiser. And board members, I think for this case, it's really a question of whether you view it to be a violation of the statute or not. And if you do view it as a violation, our recommendation is for a stipulation for diversion with $1,000 fine. The investigator for this case was Rob Walker, and he's here to answer any questions you may have.
Rob, this is Brett Goff.
Yes.
So is this related to the quality of the appraisal that was turned in? Is that the issue, that they don't want to pay because they felt the appraiser didn't do a good job on the appraisal?
Yeah, basically they're saying that it was not use PAP compliant. And I think a lot of it had to do with a general lack of communication. At least that's what the complainant's lack is. This does have to do with an appraisal that was from an earlier case, case number 2023-238. There appeared to be significant issues with the appraisal. However, I think this is just, whether or not you're going to pay, and whether you're going to arbitrarily say, I'm not going to pay this guy because of the bad appraisal. And I think mainly it was the lack of notice that they weren't going to pay within the 60-day guideline.
Thanks.
So they never did resolve the appraisal because, right. And so they asked for some updates. He sent them some updates, and then there was some other things that happened. But in the end, the true violation was they didn't respond to the appraiser that said, here's what we need, or we're not going to pay you, kind of thing. So they did violate that statute, correct?
I guess that would be up to your interpretation. It did look like there was nothing in writing via email or written notice of that they weren't going to pay until like after the 60 days. I think there had been some communications, and basically The complainant said, hey, you've got to address these issues. The respondent said, I've addressed all these issues as best as I can. I'm not going to address them any further. So we kind of became a stalemate after that.
And board members, you don't have any special language that says this is how you have to notify somebody that you're not going to pay them when there's a dispute that exists. You just have the statute language. So that's, yeah. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you want to save more of discussion for after an executive session, I do have some legal advice to give on this matter.
Oh, okay. Let's do that.
So would you like me to just kind of segue into complaint matters D, because I think you probably may need some legal advice on that too, and I can give you the summaries on those cases.
Yes, and yes, thank you, Marcia.
So complaint matter D consists of two separate complaints against the same respondent. I'm going to read you a summary for each of the complaints, and then I'll read you the recommendation for discipline. The first complaint is 2022-785. There were numerous allegations included in this complaint, including that the respondent employed a team located in the Ukraine to assist in the writing and analysis of Colorado appraisal reports. Staff appraisers were required to provide their signatures to office management. The appraiser signatures were affixed to reports without their knowledge or permission by either the overseas employees or by the management team. A second company email address was set up unbeknownst to most of the staff appraisers and was set up to communicate with appraisal management companies and our clients concerning orders, assignments, and revision requests. The clients were given the impression that they were communicating directly with the appraiser, but in fact, all email communication was performed by the office staff, and the appraiser's experience was exaggerated or misrepresented to clients in an effort to generate more assignments. In reviewing the complaint and the associated documents, there appeared to be numerous potential violations of the USPAP ethics rule, as well as the Colorado revised statutes. The second case in this matter is complaint number 2022-890. This complaint alleges that the complainant was employed briefly by the respondent and did not complete any appraisals for their company. His allegations included that he was asked for a copy of his electronic signature to provide to office staff and repeatedly pressured to provide blanket authorization for the use of his signature. Staff appraisers were expected to conduct the inspection, fill in the first page of the 1004 form, and hand in the report to be completed by an unlicensed assistant located overseas who would choose the comparables, complete the analysis, the grid adjustments, and the reconciliation. Allegations also included falsified experience logs in order to fast track with the goal of farming licenses to associates with the company in order to bid on more jobs with appraisal management companies and complete a higher volume of orders. In reviewing the complaint and the associated documents, there appear to be numerous potential violations of the USPAP ethics rule as well as Colorado revised statutes. And I just remembered Clint needs to recuse from this. So Clint, if you want to shut your camera off and walk away, and I will text you when we're done with this matter. The recommendation for these two cases is revocation of the license, public censure. It would be a final agency order and a $5,000 fine. Rob completed the investigations on both of these cases, and he can answer any questions that you may have.
Should we go into executive session first before we have discussion?
That's completely up to the board.
Marcia, I have a quick question just for clarification. On the investigative report, it's complaint number 2022-795, right? And so the agenda.
And 890.
And 890. The agenda said 2023-790.
Oh, so it's 2022-785 and then 2022-890.
Okay, thank you.
And do any board members feel as though they may need legal advice on any of those cases?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Patrice. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, Brent. Then at this time, this is Mickey Sanders. It is September 7th. The time is 10:35. This is a meeting of the Colorado Board of Real Estate Appraisers. I move that the board enter into executive session pursuant to section 24-6402 3A2 of the Colorado Revised Statutes to receive legal advice on specific legal questions concerning complaint matter 2023-790 and the legal basis for discipline, as well as complaint matters 2022-785 and 890 and the legal basis for discipline. And we will also in the executive session be discussing policy matter A, which we moved up from the agenda earlier this morning. Do I have a second on the motion?
I second Rob Stylo.
Great. May I have a vote? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We have 5 ayes. The vote passes. We will now move into executive session. Please remember to mute your microphone and turn your camera off.
For some reason, I can't start my video. Am I still somewhere else?
But you're still, you might be, but we can hear you. So I'm going to go ahead and bring us back. The
Okay.
time is now 11:12 and the board is now back in open session. So first, Marcia, will you please do the, address the next complaint matter?
You're on mute, Marcia.
You want to vote on complaint matter C and then do matter D, and then we can go into matter E, and you can go back to policy matter A.
Right, and then the two motions. Yeah, that's how I want to do it. Thank you. So, on complaint matter C 2023-790, do I have a motion to accept staff's recommendation? But I am going to ask Marcia to remind us of staff's recommendations since it's been a while.
So board members, this is the one where we were kind of not certain whether you would find a violation of state law. If you did, the recommendation was for a stipulation for diversion and $1,000 fine. If you don't find that there's a violation, you can just vote to dismiss it.
Well, I think based on the information we received, there was adequate notification to this appraiser that this was not a compliant report. And until we have better guidance from maybe the division to write a letter or to make some rules to define how that appraisal management company has to notify an appraiser, I think I would say that we should not recommend staff recommendations, and they didn't violate statutes at this point.
So you're suggesting vote to dismiss?
I am, based on what we heard from the AG's office.
Okay, and
We
then
make-
go ahead.
Sorry. Can we make, I don't know if it needs to be a motion, but for the staff at the state to clarify the language or make a board rule for that?
And that was my next question to Marcia. Where is the appropriate place to make that motion for you to draft that rule?
So if you want to go ahead and vote on whether you think there's a violation or not, and once you conclude that vote, then you
Then
can
we
direct us. Yeah.
Okay. So any other, thank you, Daisy and Patrice. Any other questions or comments? So,
I don't think you have a second to Patrice's motion.
well, and I didn't even think it was a
Isn't even a
motion. I was
motion.
going to ask her to make, I thought it
was
was
just a
suggestion she was
discussion.
making. I was going to ask her to make the motion. Thank you, Marcia.
I wanted to wait for somebody to say something different. So I would make a motion on complaint 2023-790 to dismiss this case. And I guess that's the first one.
And do we have a second?
I second that. Clinton Taylor.
Thanks, Clint. All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion passes. I
Clint,
would
do you want to
also,
recuse for this next one, and I will text you to come back.
wait, don't leave,
Yeah.
Clint, because Marcia, I was going to go ahead and make that motion now to draft the
Oh,
rule.
sorry.
Is that okay?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that the board give the commission allow them to draft a rule to implement standard language for non-payment of an appraisal. Does that hit all the high points?
I think we can figure it out from there.
Okay, good. All right, all in favor?
I second
Sorry.
that.
Thanks,
This is Patrice.
Thank you. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. And Clint, now, we'll see you in a few.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Do you want to take it, Marcia, or do you want me to?
Go right ahead. Do you want me to restate what we thought?
Just to restate, right? Thank you.
So for both of these, we believe that there were potential violations of 12-10-6131B, violation of Part 7 or Rule 12-10-6131E, use, fraud, or misrepresentation obtaining a license or certificate. 12-10-6131G, failed to comply with use PAP. 12-10-6161A, and licensed activity, and multiple ethics rule violations. And our recommendation is basically a final agency order, revocation, public censure. And originally I'd suggested a $5,000 fine. I would recommend that you just seek maximum fines.
Thoughts, comments?
This is Brent Goff. I make a motion that we accept the order, and the maximum fine would be important for me.
And this is Patrice. I second the motion for the recommendations of staff on 2022-795 and 2022-890.
Thank you. We have a motion, excuse me. We have a motion and a second. We'll have a vote. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. And the ayes have it.
So
Okay.
this is Zach Fitzgerald. I just wanted to clarify because the first motion said maximum fine, and then the second said recommendations of staff. So I just wanted to clarify because the staff recommendation was a $5,000 fine.
Oh,
But-
I thought Marcia said the updated staff recommendation. That's what I was going with. So
I thought so too.
Okay, updated staff. Okay, just wanted to make clear. All right, thank you.
I thought so
sorry,
too.
you're right.
So do we need to redo that one or leave it as is?
I think you're good.
Okay.
And Clint will be joining shortly.
Okay, thanks. And then we will do E, and then I will do policy matter A.
Okay, I'm back, guys.
Okay, so complaint matter E is case number 2023-540. In this case, it was alleged that the respondent used comparable sales with physical features reported inaccurately, inappropriate comparable sales due to location, dissimilar comparable sales due to site characteristics, and physically dissimilar comparable sales. In reviewing the report, several potential use PAP violations were discovered. There appeared to be record-keeping rule violations. The respondent failed to adequately document and analyze the data used to make the adjustments in the sales comparison approach. There were no historical paired sales that the respondent referenced in his work file. Potential violations are 12-10-6131G, failed to comply with use PAP, scope of work rule, record keeping rule, and standards rules 1 and 2. The recommendation is for a stipulation for diversion and coursework consisting of 5 hours or more in data verification, 6 hours or more in site valuation, 7 hours or more in comparable analysis or comparative analysis and or supporting adjustments, and the board's reliable record keeping course. The investigator for this case is Scott Wentz, and he's here to answer any questions that you may have.
Scott, this is Brent Goff.
Good morning, sir.
Would it be appropriate to also ask the appraiser to take a cost approach class? I see there's a cost approach on a 123-year-old house, and if I have the case right, it was given a 60-year life. And in the reconciliation among the approaches, was the cost approach discussed adequately?
I don't believe it actually was, to be honest with you, Brent. There was some problems with the actual cost approach. The actual respondent actually stated that he was utilizing current sales extraction method with depreciated costs allocation method based on county court records. In the actual cost approach, in the comments in the cost approach, he stated he didn't list. He basically stated all three. Like I said, the current sales, extraction, and actually allocation, and he really didn't describe which one he actually utilized for this actual report. And he didn't have any cost sheets or didn't have any of the methodology that he utilized for the actual cost approach. So, but were you referring to the economic life, or what were you referring to in the beginning, Brent, for your question?
I think that he just said the life of the typical building there is 60 years.
Yes, he didn't really elaborate on the actual typical life cycle for the actual subject. That is correct, sir.
So maybe it'd be appropriate for a cost approach class as well.
I believe so, sir.
Okay.
Was this also the one in that cost approach where they used land, the site value is based on lots surrounding it or something? Is that another one?
Let me take a
Can't
look.
remember now.
He actually utilized, like I said, three different methods. He utilized the current sales, the extraction, then allocation that was based on the county records. He did actually state in the cost approach that the county records are they're not current. Obviously, they're at least a year behind. But then again, utilizing the county records, that's utilizing somebody else's report. So,
right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Marcia, is there to go along with Brent's question, is there a division cost approach class or something that?
Yes, there is one. Not one put on by us, but there's definitely one that they can take that is available. I think McKissick has some, and Appraisal Institute may as well.
All right, questions, thoughts? And Marcia, would you please remind us of staff recommendation?
So the recommendation is for a stipulation for diversion, 5 hours or more in data verification, 6 hours or more in site valuation, 7 hours or more in comparative analysis and or supporting adjustments, and the board's reliable record keeping class. And if you want to, we can definitely add cost approach.
Brent, would you like to make that motion, sir? Adding your.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we adopt the staff recommendations, but also include at least a 7-hour cost approach class.
Do I have a second?
I second. This is Daisy Glasper.
Thanks, Daisy. Let's vote. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Next was regarding policy matter A. And I would make a motion to vote to give the division director authority to respond to the email. Do I have a second?
This is Brent. I'll second that.
All in favor say
Aye.
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 All opposed? Nays, hearing none, the motion passes. We now move on to licensing matters. And
Fortunately, you have none.
seeing none, we now move on to the expedited settlement program matters.
And we also have none.
Thank you, Penny. We also will look at Attorney General matters. And seeing none, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Mrs.
Do I have a
Patrice?
second?
I second Rob Stylo.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
All right, meeting is adjourned. We will see you November 2nd at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thanks, Mickey.
Thank you, board members.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.